Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Hamstra as the Orc Countess Ida and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
The night passes without incident. Makka, you take your watch as you often do, with vigilance and I think to some degree a sense of calm that not a lot of people can manage on a watch. What do you think Makka considers over the course of the night? Obviously, you're attentive and you're keeping an eye out, but as we've established, this is kind of the border of what was previously pretty hostile and spooky territory. So there aren't really a lot. Like, I think after a while it becomes very clear you're watching an empty field, on the edge of some woods. But what do you spend the night pondering?
I think his mind flits from a couple different subjects. I think he thinks about how shaky his confidence was in his abilities and kind of what connection he had to this tainted Jossie during the days at sea, where he was worried about if his powers would go out of control or if he was going to hurt someone that he wasn't meaning to hurt or infect them with the taint of dark Jossie. And then kind of reflecting on the confidence with which he wielded those powers in the valley. I can't remember, the Valley of Never-Ending Storms?
Eternal Storms.
Eternal Storms, excuse me. And I think sort of during his watch kind of comes to the conclusion that, he's enough of an individual, although he is almost his entire identity is based around being like an agent of Jossie. He's still an individual operating on her behalf. And even if she is wrathful right now, something he never thought she had the capacity to be, he still believes it's his duty to protect her and to enact her will, the grander scheme of nurturing and maintaining the cycle of life and death and back into life again. So I think pondering that and thinking about how he kind of had a lack of confidence early on, and then during combat, rescuing people and things like that, he was kind of reassures himself over the course of the night, thinking that he is in control of how he dispenses his magic and things like that, and that his mission has not changed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How's he feeling about the use of necromancy? Or is that even a concern for him at this point?
It's not a major concern for him. I know that Duncan really kind of took issue with what he was doing a couple moments there, but they haven't had a chance to really talk about it. But for Makka, it's a tool that can be used for good, i.e., enriching or accelerating or exaggerating the cycle in certain aspects, or it can be used to break the cycle entirely, kind of thing, right? And so it needs to be handled responsibly, but he's not out. He doesn't have a problem with the way that he's using it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So over the course of the evening, you ponder these things, and I think regain a bit of confidence in yourself, actually having a moment to reflect and to reframe the nature of Jossie as she relates to you right now. And I think kind of picking that very sort of existential quandary choice of, I can't necessarily control what Jossie has become, but I can control how I act in her name and kind of how I can enact the will that existed, and hopefully with the untainted Glomar can exist again. You also, I think, as you kind of ponder through these things, you can feel your wooden arm sort of begin to shift a little bit as the night goes on, and this isn't new. As we have discussed previously, the root folk archivist consciousness is slowly integrating like generations of knowledge into your kind of like into both the cluster, but also into your mind and kind of how this works. And you get a very clear image in your head as you kind of feel this shifting of vines entangling projectiles. So sort of missiles, whether they're would probably be darts to your mind, thorns being thrown, but you can feel your arm kind of shift. And as you look down, you can see the sort of rooted, sort of twisting wood almost breathe a little bit. And it becomes very clear to you as you look at this that you would be able to do this, that your arm has this capability. So as you sort of meditate throughout the evening, you'll be granted the equivalent of gloves of missile snaring as your wooden arm regains some of its previous capability. So the way this works is as long as your wooden hand is free, which it often is, given that you're usually wielding a shillelagh and you don't really fuck with shields, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage of a projectile of a ranged weapon attack by 1d10 plus your dex modifier, provided you have the free hand. If you reduce the damage to 0, you can also catch the missile if it is small enough to hold in that hand. Okay, so basically...
I do typically take a shield, actually.
You do have a shield, okay.
Metal, yeah. It's a big... I call it petrified wood. It's like it's hardened minerals.
Okay, great. Well, regardless, your shield will likely provide you better defense overall than this. But if you were caught unawares or you are unarmed for any reason, or you're not wielding a shield, this is a capability you have specifically with your wooden arm.
Okay.
So this isn't something that you can necessarily do on your own, but definitely something that is possible.
Okay, thanks.
Duncan, given what... well, this is actually more a Ryan question than a Duncan question. Given that you haven't had a chance to talk to Makka about the necromancy piece, and you established last episode that Duncan isn't really going to sleep tonight, given that he's concerned about the things he's concerned about, do you think you would try and go and talk to Makka about this today, or is this something you would hold for later?
This is the rare circumstance where I think because Duncan would probably take the next watch after Makka, so there'd be that changeover. I think he's hoping it goes away. I think Duncan likes Makka, and Makka usually makes sense, so he's almost hoping it was an exception. But nah, he's not going to be able to not talk about it. That's not who Duncan is. So yeah, Duncan goes to kind of trade places at the fire, and he goes, so necromancy, eh?
What of it? You have seen someone here using necromancy?
That is innately correct, yes.
Show them to me.
Duncan just raises a hand and points at Makka directly.
Makka looks over his shoulder and looks back, says,
you are referring to me, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So you've been a sworn enemy of necromancy at all times until you randomly started using it.
Not randomly, no. I have been an enemy of necromancers. Those who use death magics exclusively to selfish or destructive ends, yes. But in serving Jassi, I am gifted with smaller death magics, the ability to manipulate life and death to varying degrees. Yes.
Yes, but you said necromancy is using death magic to destructive ends, and you raised the dead to kill the living.
Yes.
So where's the difference?
A hypothetical question for you, Duncan.
All right, they're my least favorite, but let's do this.
You are a master with the blade, yes?
Yes.
You use this blade to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You defend what is your idea of justice, the truest justice, yes?
Correct.
There are those who would use blades to harm the innocent, to enforce their will on others, to slay and kill others.
Yes.
The blade has no choice in this. It is up to the wielder how to use the blade. So too does necromancy not have a choice over who is using it and how it is being used, but it must be used with restraint, discretion, yes.
But necromancy corrupts who you are at the core of you. There are no stories of good necromancers raising the dead to protect kingdoms of the innocent. They kill, they pervert, they escape the cycle that you have sworn yourself to.
Yes.
Picking up a knife does not mean that you must use it, or that it'll draw you to bigger blades or more innocent victims, or killing so that your knife can kill. Necromancy does that.
This is in your experience, yes? That you know this?
This is everything I've read about history. Admittedly, that's more limited than I would like have discovered walking around the world. What you said is Jassy gives you the ability to control death. So did the Necrotis, and the Necrotis almost destroyed the world, giving out necromancy and other blasphemous powers.
Yes. Necromancy used on a massive scale, yes?
Yes.
This is not something I would ever do. I am not known as a necromancer to anyone.
It's true, but did you have this ability before Jassy fell?
Yes, indeed I did. In Sprongbreck, I summoned the dead dwarves recently fallen to rise again and aid us in a battle against that demon.
I guess, but those were powered by your spores. I could see that magic, or is this other magic? Your magic confuses me, and I don't feel safe when the dead are rising, because that's everything I've been told is wrong, but you're telling me this is just another blade to be used. There's no difference between necromancy and the sword.
I see no distinction in my magic when I am bringing a corpse back to temporary life, or healing you or Gwendolyn, closing your wounds. Should I not also just let you pass away, given that this magic is inherently evil?
Battling to maintain life is different than summoning life into the dead.
It is life on a different scale. The spores, they live off of the dead flesh, make it ambulatory once more. But the person who that decaying flesh once was, is no more.
Would you teach this magic to others? Do you believe this is a school that people should learn?
It is not a school. I am incapable of teaching any of this to anyone. One day, I was Makka Tengo. Then I died. And then I woke up as Makka Deathcap, and I knew things I could never have known in life.
And you were raised by Jassy.
Yes. Raised to enact her will to protect the cycle, as it is now threatened by overzealous use of death magic, necromancy. These Sinkai.
Well, then it appears that you're the exception to the rule, my friend. Because you're not a mortal using necromancy. You're an aspect of a god. And gods do what they will. Unless justice stops them, and that's sort of what I'm here for. But I will stand by you. And you will use your gifts. Don't go mad like your god.
I must confess I have pondered on this on the boat. I thought to myself, should this aberration of Jassy corrupt me as I use this magic, as I manipulate spores, would you and Gwendolyn be able to stop me? And the answer came back, yes, Duncan and Danno would see it done. Take solace in that, my friend.
I don't know if I can take solace in that, but I can accept it as a necessity. Most importantly, though, you need to save your goddess. I've been thinking about what to call you, because I don't believe referring to you as the gravekeeper of the Tortles of Bleen is true anymore.
That is no longer a title befitting of what I am or what has become of my people.
Do you have a new title for yourself that you'd prefer?
No, Duncan, I do not.
Well, I was thinking, and Jassy has indeed lost her mind. I think we could agree at this point. But clearly, through empowering you and the possibility for healing, her heart remains. And perhaps that heart is you. Perhaps you're Makka Deathcap, the heart of Jassy.
I can't remember if this has ever happened or not, but you watch Makka smile at that. And he'll just give one curt nod and say,
This is an honor, an honorable title. Thank you, Duncan.
You've earned it for yourself, my friend. Now it's your turn to rest, and it's my turn to watch the darkness.
Take care.
Sleep well, heart of Jassy.
I will.
Duncan, you can give yourself 1 point of inspiration for helping your friend through an existential crisis.
And then
The smile.
Duncan will spend his shift due to simultaneously an ability upgrade, but also just the world. He will have been using, he's realized Mr. Bang has his moments, and he greatly loves Mr. Bang. But Mr. Bang, when facing multiple targets, can only shoot one of them. So he took some of the gear that they discovered through all the weird science stuff, and he's been reworking the weapon. So he'll finish it tonight. Mr. Bang has, in fact, been split into 2 separate pistols, with each of the barrels separated and reworked. And he's figured out through looking at a bunch of the science tech how to create the equivalent of a preloaded musket shell. So it's more similar to the bullets we'd use now. He can put the powder in it. It has a musket ball at the front, and it can go in. And they load into the grips of the 2 pistols that he has. And the front of them is built like the Remington shotguns, if you're thinking of Terminator 2, where it's got the loop around the fingers and a trigger at the top. So he can actually shoot the guns and then just twirl them around his hands, and they auto-reload, and he can shoot again. So he'll be carrying one on each hip moving forwards, introducing Mr. and Mrs. Bang as his future gun companions. Because he got a new skill called
a wedding somewhere in this series, and I'm glad we got that.
You wait until they have kids. But yeah, so he gets to ignore the loading properties of weapons if they're one-handed. So it'll mean he can fire every round instead of having to take a round to remusket his guns. The first barrel that he's always had, Mr. Bang, he now has advantage on the first range shot every turn with his one Mr. Bang pistol.
Great.
So extra filigree on that one. They're looking cool.
Nice. Yeah, it's the Red Dead 2 situation where you just went in and got like cool shit added to them and maybe changed the color slightly.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
they're pearl handled now.
Ooh. But also a finger grip so you can spin reload. Nice. All right, very good. So you spend your night upgrading the Bang family. I think it's probably the 2 watches for the night. I imagine Fallow Ted takes one because it's his literal job. So he'll relieve you at some point. Gwendolyn, you don't really sleep. So even though you're not on watch, you also kind of have some time with your thoughts. What is where we'd kind of left Gwendolyn as we left as we exited rather the Valley of Eternal Storms was thinking about the common folk and trying to get a better sense of Gwen because I think your experiences with Doc Malvern and the clinic folk really, I think, altered the way you consider the world and also consider the mission of the Alliance of Equals. Because between Neb and Bleep, it's a pretty different situation than you thought. So what goes through your head as you don't sleep? As you just sit there with presumably dirt packed into your helmet.
Well, now there's a bit of a revelation here because Gwendolyn had assumed that her father was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now she knows that he's alive. Which...
Yeah, you got a whole bunch of shit dumped on you.
Questions about okay... trying to make these big sweeping changes and how Orville will be run in its place in the world in the future. And Gwendolyn no longer knows if she'll even have the power to do any of this anymore. So it's kind of a weird thing of I think she'd kind of gotten used to the fact that her father was dead and had been acting accordingly and kind of really envisioning herself leading Orville in the future. So it's almost oh, well, she's glad he's alive, but it does complicate things.
Yes.
So I think there's just a lot of thought on okay, if he's alive and sane, because that's a whole other thing. I don't think she's really worried about her father.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they had really that relationship where I don't think she cares for him greatly. I think, Duncan was probably more of a teacher in life than her dad was.
Yeah, I've always viewed their relationship more as almost like a manager and an employee.
Yeah.
And an assistant manager. You're training to become manager. So you're, cordial and pleasant. And, you understand each other. You probably got along just fine. But the familial warmth was not ever really a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think there are a lot of uncomfortable thoughts that she's having, which is just okay, so if her father survives and, is capable of ruling, what does that mean? Gwendolyn believes that the right person should inherit the throne of Orville, and who the right person is and what that means has changed significantly. So I don't think she believes that her father is the right person to rule anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And I don't think she's probably going to think further than that, because that's a big fucking thought to have.
Can you roll me a history check, please? And I'll give you
Sure.
advantage on this.
Okay. That is a 24.
24. It's spoken about rather quaintly in court and as you were growing up, but you do, of course, recall that when Amala declared an heir to become the first Kinselaris, the first philosopher ruler under her, or after her rather, having, of course, sustained mortal injury in her final battle against Ashur Tamlin. The goal was always to adopt, we talked about this a few episodes ago as well, but to adopt an appropriate heir into rulership. Now, granted, that is several generations lost. And also that also didn't always work out. Like there are plenty of instances where the wrong person was selected. So it's interesting. And with the 24, I think we can safely say that Gwendolyn does know this, that this isn't like something that we, the players, know, but Gwendolyn, the character, does not. Weirdly, you're talking just now about the idea that who should rule has changed, but really you're kind of talking about reverting to the original intent of the system. Now, what you've learned from a variety of things already is that the original intent of systems doesn't mean that they're correct, nor that they work for the modern world. But in this case, that is kind of what you're talking about. What's interesting, though, is if I'm reading what you're saying correctly, you're considering that Gwendolyn feels that she herself should take the throne after she's learned all the things she needs to learn under Duncan's tutelage and the tutelage of like Gran and the world and learning everything about the world. But weirdly, what I think is kind of neat is you've come around from the idea of I'm the princess, so I get to rule Orville and I'll be a better ruler than my father, to the right person should rule, but that person needs more than just a hereditary line. Ergo, I am the right person to rule, not because of blood, but because of experience and education and understanding. So ironically, it's the same result either way. It's just a much different way of thinking about it, which in turn will complicate it greatly. I know you're dealing with the complex feelings of like, am I leading a coup against my father? What's actually going on here? Yeah. But also in that, to make that work, you will essentially have to come back and say, well, yes, this is technically mine by blood, but ignore that. It should be the right person, but I'm also the right person.
Yeah.
Which is a really fucking complicated argument to make, particularly to the court of Gren.
Yeah. And can I tell you, like, I literally just updated one of my bonds on my character sheet. Mm-hmm. Like, it used to be the right person must inherit the throne, and the right person is me. Mm-hmm. That has changed to the right person may not be me.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's like, she's kind of come to realize, like, she has a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. And that really changed with like her conversations with Doc Malvern.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think, there's definitely feeling that right person is not her father. And
it's Nikos, right? It's got to be Nikos.
Yeah, it's Nikos. Yeah, great.
Good.
We've won.
Well, mission accomplished.
Yeah, Gwendolyn can retire.
Gwendolyn journeys to the Sinkai to join up.
Yeah, we are now Curse and Code, I guess.
Curse, Code, and Kai.
That's great. So I think it's she needs to learn, and I don't think she hasn't seen anyone else. She's never come across anyone else that seems to be fully invested in everyone in Gren. You know what I mean? Like, it seems to be like everyone's invested in their own culture, their own like small society, and the relations they have with like people they trade with and such, but not necessarily like the welfare of all. So I think as long as she is the only one who seems to be concerned about that, she will see herself as the person who should be on this journey to retake the throne and bring people together. But she'll also be looking out for kind of allies to join the alliance of equals, but also allies who are also interested in the welfare of all.
Cool. All right. I like all that. Awesome. Okay. So a fraught evening, certainly.
Yeah, she's having a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. I assume Ita just kind of is able to rest. She's probably pretty burnt out by all of this. There's a lot of chaos, which of course sort of spits in the face of everything she believes in. You look like you've got something, Laura.
Well, there's just one thing, because I think Ida is just like, oh shit, I need to teach people what I know. Because I think having seen Sylvia Tome and how she like perverted science so much, I'm just like, oh shit. I don't know. Maybe Ida can like, I feel like she needs to prove that she's like a teacher. She's like, or can learn and can teach others, because like everything's fucked in her world. So, so this is part of like what Ida's gained too, as she leveled up, which is she became an expert educator, which means that she can choose like one skill, tool, weapon, or language that she has proficiency in. And basically at the end of a long rest, any creature that can hear her can gain one of those proficiencies until the end of her next long rest.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
So I think this is more of like of a practice. So just like, let's start with something small. And I don't know if you remember, but Ida gained proficiency in talking in Duncan's accent. So in Sprongbreck. Oh. And so seeing, I think, Squire Nibs and his affinity for Duncan, she's going to teach him that. So for the next day, he can talk like Duncan.
So Nibs gets to be Scottish for a day?
He gets to be Scottish. You're welcome, Tom.
Thanks,
Only
Laura.
if he wants to, though. Only if he wants to.
It's Nibs. Of course he's going to fucking want to. You think that kid has impulse control over things he admires? Awesome. Yeah, I love that take that it's like a direct result of being disappointed by your idol has led to And also it's fun because I mean when we met Ita, she was very much like, this is my first job outside of learning and realizing that like the Empire is more corrupt than she expected, and then also that your idols can disappoint. I think it's really fun to be like, I'm disappointed by this, ergo I must push back is super fun. It's also nice that the barking butterflies are also around this camp. You know, they're never far, just flittering around the woods. Okay, that's cool. I like that a lot. So Ida is now on a quest to help undo the damage done by people who don't properly respect and honor the teachings that she holds dear, which I think is honestly kind of a really sweet way to think about it, which is just like, this stuff matters to me and I've seen it perverted enough times now that I need to right some wrongs about it. Awesome.
Which makes her real world parallel Neil deGrasse Tyson, like just trying to teach scientific literacy to people all over the place.
Yeah, or like the actual Bill Nye, who's just like, oh God, okay. Look, I taught this to kids forever, didn't think I'd have to teach it to adults, but here we are. So I'm going to start swearing. And I was like, thanks, Bill Nye. Who is a huge personal hero and huge influence. So good stuff. I just want to clear that up, that Sylvia Tome is a fictional character, not in any way related to the real man, who is amazing. Just in case you didn't get that from the science gnome part of it. Yeah. Great. So, just a nice, simple night for everyone then, I guess. But happily not one where you're, ambushed or betrayed or anything else. You awake to an overcast sky. It's strange being back in regular weather patterns after being in the Valley of Eternal Storms, where everything was wacky. The fact that it's not raining up is kind of a nice piece. The fact that you're out of that weird closed circuit the cloud giants had set up to just constantly allow them to refresh their clouds. You're just in normal clouds. It's nice. It's nice to be walking around in that. It's a cool morning. It's kind of, if you sort of a classic camping morning where you're nice and cozy in your sleeping bag, and you get out and you're like, oh, it's chilly today, and it's a bit of that. So there's sort of a cool breeze on the air. But you're dry and you're no longer dealing with weird storms. So there's that. You wake to the fire has been tended all night, obviously, by anyone who's on watch. So the fire's still going, although it's small. And you're met with the pleasant aroma of coffee. That is something that I think, Duncan, were you a coffee guy, do you think, back in Orville?
I think he'd drink anything bitter. I mean, if Orville has it, yeah, he would have engaged with that. It feels like the hangover swill, which would definitely live in a Duncan world.
For sure. And also just like gotta stay awake, gotta keep vigilant. Makka, this is probably something you have not encountered, although Bleen certainly traffics in a lot of coffee beans. I don't feel like Makka would be. You're more of like gonna brew some mushrooms and steep those and
bread and water kind of guy.
Yep. Ita, I think you would be familiar with it, but I don't know if you would drink it.
Oh. Long hours writing her thesis. Ida's all about that coffee.
Okay.
Ida's like Laura when Laura was in school. Ida was like 5 cups a day.
Right on. Okay.
Still seems like 4 cups too few, but I'm with you. So with the barking butterflies flitting about, you're enticed by the smell of brewing coffee, and are pleasantly surprised because such noble comforts seem at odds with the humble camp. So drawn by the smell of brewing coffee, you kind of shuffle your way to the fire, and Hadrian already has a mug and is, as you would expect from a man of his bearing, kind of has like one foot up on a log, like staring into the horizon with a steaming mug in his hand. And he just kind of raises it to Ita and Duncan as you approach the fire, and says, though many of the objects we took from the treasury were meant for barter and to secure assistance down here, in the down low, some were simply meant for creature comforts. I hope you enjoy as much as I do. And takes a hearty sip. And for a brief second, there's just a look of contentment crosses his face. And Duncan, given that you're already kind of like planning to talk to him about his mental state, you can tell that this is one of the this is the equivalent of like a warm blanket for him. It's like one of the few nice things that's going right in his life. So he takes a sip and just kind of relaxes a little bit. There is food. Again, it's the same sort of fare you had the night before. Again, there's not much variance here. It's all what you got. But yes, is there anything you want to do before you set off in search of the Exiles moon?
Duncan will eat and drink because between Nibs and the various conversations, this seems like the world's worst plan to murder us, if it is that. So he's gonna tuck in at this point. And just seeing Hadrian have such a nice morning, Duncan will let him have this breakfast. He'll check in on the road, but he looks so happy. Like, yep. I don't want to break this man. And the conversations to come are going to be like, how are you? Are you still sane? By the way, we're both first captains. I was also freed of my oaths to the crown. I don't know what your situation is there. Oh, yeah, and I've converted like 40 or no, like several hundred possible new Dawnbreakers around the world. He's just got a lot to say. And if he can have a nice coffee, he wants Hadrian to have a nice coffee first.
Yeah, the best part of waking up is existential dread and a conversation about the nature of your order, your oaths, and how your system works in your cup. It's the classic catchphrase for that brand. Okay, that makes sense to me. So yes, Nerman, still very true to his station and profession, pours for everyone who wants it. Collectively you have a relatively nice morning. It's a little tense. There's definitely a sense of anticipation in the air. All of the folks who've been having the visions report that they dreamt very vividly of them, and they know they're getting close, which is good because, as Hadrian has pointed out, the moon will soon be full. And so, having completed a relatively calm morning, the camp is struck, packed up, and with one sort of last sip of coffee, Ita, your mug is rapidly swept away by Nerman, rinsed out and stowed. And as the caravan is packed, collectively, you all begin the long march deeper into the woods in search of the Exiles' moon.
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hamstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crown's artwork was created by the brilliant Borovic. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. The Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, Richard Cranium, Sammy Boy, Orion Birchfield, Scott Garland, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Roman Brown, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.